Picture the AI leaderboards you scroll past every week. The top models now cluster within a razor-thin band on the old favorites, and half those tiny gaps are just statistical noise dressed up as progress. Worse, the benchmarks everyone keeps citing get absorbed into training data, so yesterday's brutal test quietly becomes today's memorization quiz. Researchers at Alibaba and Skylenage asked a sharper question. Instead of grading the models, why not grade the benchmarks themselves? That idea became the Benchmark Health Index, published in February 2026, and it changes how we read every leaderboard. Let's dig in. Look, the whole framework runs as one clean audit pipeline. We take a benchmark, score it on 3 orthogonal axes, fold those into a single number, and then decide whether its leaderboard still deserves our trust. Start with any evaluation set, GLUE, MMLU, SWE bench, whatever a report cites. The Benchmark Health Index is purely data-driven, so it needs no expert opinions and no vibes. It just needs the raw scores that Benchmark has produced, pulled here from the technical reports of 91 representative models released across last year. Here, the paper measures 3 orthogonal properties. Capability discrimination asks how sharply the benchmark separates strong models from weak ones beyond noise. Anti-saturation estimates the headroom left before scores hit the ceiling. And impact captures real adoption across academia and industry. Each axis stays deliberately independent, so they never double count the same signal. Once the axes are in, they combine into one benchmark health index. The weights are not handpicked. The authors use a coefficient of variation method, letting the data itself decide how much each axis matters, which landed near 36% for anti-saturation, 33% for discrimination, and 31% for impact. Finally, that single score tells us which benchmarks to trust and which to retire. A high index means the test still discriminates sharply, still has headroom, and genuinely shapes the field. A low one is a warning that a beloved leaderboard may be measuring memorization more than real capability. Same audit, applied benchmark by benchmark. So, why does grading benchmarks even matter? Put the old habit right next to the new one. This is the old reflex. We trust whichever benchmark is most cited, then read the leaderboard's top line as gospel. But citation frequency no longer tracks rigor. Cheap, low-effort tests stay popular because they are easy to run, while the score inflation and selective reporting underneath quietly erode whether that number means anything at all. This is what benchmark auditing flips. Rather than asking which model won, we ask whether the benchmark itself is still a fair instrument. The Benchmark Health Index treats every eval as public infrastructure with a life cycle, quantifying its discrimination, its remaining headroom, and its real impact, so selection becomes a measurement instead of a marketing habit. Strip it back, and the whole index rests on 3 health signals. This axis is about resolution. A healthy benchmark spreads models out, so the gap between a strong and a weak system is real signal, not sampling jitter. When every top model scores within a whisker of the others, discrimination collapses and the ranking stops meaning much, no matter how prestigious the test looks. This metric tracks headroom. As benchmarks leak into training data or get over-engineered, the ceiling arrives and progress flatlines. Anti-saturation rewards tests that still have room to run, which is why brutally hard sets like humanity's last exam sit at the top while older favorites slide toward retirement. This third signal is influence. A benchmark earns its keep when it actually shapes practice, driving real adoption across labs and industry, not just racking up citations. Impact keeps the index honest, So a test cannot score well in isolation while sitting ignored in a forgotten corner of the field. All right, let's lock in what the Benchmark Health Index gives us. The Benchmark Health Index is a data-driven framework from Alibaba and Skylenage that audits benchmarks themselves, scoring how trustworthy a leaderboard really is rather than simply grading the models. It rests on three orthogonal axes: capability discrimination for how well a test separates models, anti-saturation for remaining headroom, and impact for real adoption, each weighted objectively by a coefficient of variation method. It exists because leaderboards saturate and get contaminated. Distilling 106 benchmarks from 91 model reports in 2025, it exposes which canonical tests still discriminate and which have quietly decayed into memorization checks. At the top of its rankings sits humanity's last exam, followed by simple QA and zero bench, a signal of where trustworthy evaluation is heading. Want more AI research decoded without the hype? Come spend a few minutes with us over at standarity.com.